Bjergsen, the man in the mid lane from TSM. Bjergsen, finally a win on the board. I gotta imagine there's a huge sense of relief finally closing out that third game.
Of course, it feels good. Winning in that way doesn't feel as good as it could. A lot of our wins in last season were, they weren't as super clean in the beginning, but I feel like really the thing about TSM is that we're always the most hardworking team, and I feel like we were lacking material to really work with. But now we have these games to really look over and improve from. We have a lot of these LCK games in the last week or so. So I think now we finally have the material to be the best team.
Is it fair to say that right now you feel like it's a rocky start, but it's just all up into the right now for TSM?
For sure. I mean, I think that's how everyone feels right now. It was obvious that we didn't really know how to execute on some of our comps. Even against C9, I think C9 is a really strong team right now. I don't know how their games against Dig went, but for these games, we definitely missed a sense of direction. And I think W1D3 brought that direction to some degree, and also just preparation. And I think once we have more time, or once we are able to prepare better, our games are going to be much cleaner.
Absolutely, and of course, you guys always make the final no matter what it looks like. I remember your spring split run last year, 6th place, and to suddenly making the finals after all. And I'm happy you brought up W1D3 because it's still on the minds of all the TSM fans. Wild Turtle in his place. Individually, didn't look very good on the first match, but I want you to talk to me about the change in the bottom lane and how it's going to affect TSM.
I think it's pretty much just everyone getting back into it. It's not just all the 4 of us are performing to the same degree, and it's just W1D3 missing. I feel like all 4 of us, regardless of Turtle, we still have a lot of things to work on, and we're not looking out for the same plays and at the same level as we were at Worlds, which is obviously understandable because we're in the spring split. But I think right now we're just focusing on dividing the roles that W1D3 brought. I'm trying to take over a lot of his responsibilities as a leader, mostly. And yeah, I'm really confident in our team. Our week 1 was shaky, but with the weeks, we're going to be better and better.
And another final again for TSM in the works, of course?
Of course.
All right, TSM going to win North America once again, at least make the final. Bjergsen, thank you very much. Congratulations on the win. We'll see you next week. Let's toss it over to the analysts.
Thank you very much, Freak. Bjergsen there, very tempered in his responses, recognizing the shakiness that the team has felt here.
That, of course, was not the most confident, of course, I've ever heard. Like, oh, yeah, the finals, sure.
Yeah, 100%.
That's what we're looking at right now.
3-0, we already know it's going to happen.
Not this weekend.
Yeah, but again, I think it's always great to see players recognizing, when even though they achieved victory, that the victory did not come easily or in a super clean fashion, and that there's still plenty of work to be done. Also, love the fact that he's separating out and saying, hey, look, yes, Wild Turtle's new, and that's back on the roster, and that's a change for us to work through. But that doesn't forgive the other 4 of us for any mistakes that we're making individually. It's still our responsibility to step up and play.
And I think the point he made about still getting a handle on like the new season, the changes that came with the changes to the 10-ban system is something that's almost like evening the playing field, because no one knows exactly what they're doing at this point. There's a lot of like, oh, we can pinch here, but is this exactly what we want to do? And I think as the teams with better coaching staffs and better infrastructure have more time to play with this and get more data on it, you'll see them start pulling away more. So I think you can say TSM generally seems to have a strong infrastructure, so you would assume that they would kind of ramp up over the course of the season.
Yeah, that's what one would think. And you mentioned that it's a learning, process for the players. It's also a learning process for us. So let's go ahead and dive into this draft. The one thing in this draft that I'd like to talk about is the support focus in the bans here coming into phase 2. We've got the Zyra on the side of TSM, MF Karma here for Immortals. What are your thoughts here?
So when you look at the first phase of the draft, you're always looking like where are the mismatches, and there wasn't a huge one here, basically just the top lane for the jungle. And so Immortals, they ban out MF, trying to get a good first pick in the second half with the support. If you ban the MF, the Zyra suddenly becomes super high priority, so of course TSM banned that. And then you think that, okay, Karma's the next strongest
Karma's pretty much the only meta support like that's high priority.
Right, so you would think Immortals wants that pick, and they ban out a jungler or something to scare TSM, and then TSM has to choose between a top or the Karma. Instead, Immortals bans the Karma, and then TSM is able to ban the Nautilus, as opposed to giving, the choice between Nautilus or Poppy and that kind of stuff. So
Sven gets Lee, who he's very comfortable.
Right, you could have banned that Lee, and then they have to pick and all that stuff. And it's just an interesting thing where all weekend long, Immortals seemed a little just out there with the support position. Obviously, based on the fact Ollie hadn't had much practice time compared to the rest of the league. And I mean, he did good on the Morgana. I'm not going to pretend like he's not a good Morgana. It's just it's not meta.
Right.
And I don't know if they're catering their bans really hard to accommodate that pick or not. And it might be overforcing it to an extent.
I was going to say, it's interesting, though, because, yeah, the contrast here, the counter-argument is the fact that, well, if Ale is very fond of the Morgana pick, then they guessed right in assuming that Biofrost would relegate himself to that thresh where Morgana can succeed.
I mean, they set themselves up to get a good lane matchup, but it was just, was it worth the resources in the draft it took to get that?
Right. Enough about the draft. Let's move into the game. TSM here, as we've mentioned, haven't had the cleanest game so far this split. But this game 3, to me, was the cleanest of them yet. And particularly in the early phases of the game, we saw them rotating to each other quicker.
Right. I mean, this is really what you want to see out of a team, is just that they're on the same page, and not necessarily that every play they make is going to be the best, most coordinated play ever, but when someone else makes a play against you, that you're able to react accordingly. So here we see Dardoch. He's known for making great plays. He's going to make good plays. He comes into your jungle, he kills your jungler and steals your red. That's annoying, but he doesn't get away scot-free, and that's the important part, that Biofrost was already in the jungle reacting to this potential threat, and he's able to flash this wall and get the hook onto Dardoch, which is going to set him up to get finished off by Bjergsen here. And so this is really the important thing, is that Biofrost was already moving to the jungle because they were aware of the threat that Kha'Zix had onto Svenskeren. And so it wasn't this, oh my god, he's in my jungle. It's, we can now start doing things about that. And you can see the effect it might have on Dardoch when he gets caught out. His flash there was not good. He might have lived if he had a good one, so.
I mean, you even saw at the very top of your screen there, Haunter was in position as well. So there was a possibility of him getting involved in that fight had Dardoch escaped that hook, per se. But yes, for TSM, that's at least movement in the right direction when it comes to their overall strategy and team play.
Yeah, overall, a good game from TSM. It wasn't easy, which is, I think, the scary thing. We haven't seen an easy game from them compared to the summer split, where all season long they were crushing people with a handful of, marked, oh, this game was difficult. Here, it seems like everything is a struggle, and, the sky is falling. You can hold off on that a little bit. They did pick up the win, but it was not in the fashion that we're used to seeing out of them.
Yeah, player of the game going to go to Svenskeren this time around. He got Bjergsen ahead, as well as on that Lee Sin, as we would expect, showing some mechanics, some great kicks, and the placement of them.
Right, he was in a disadvantaged jungle matchup. Got bullied a little bit early, but then was able to really bounce back, had a good mentality about it, play around Bjergsen as well. I felt like they had a lot better synergy, which is one of the things we were looking for coming out of this series, that we wanted to see that kind of dominant duo again, making things happen on the map.
So finally, I just want to kind of, recap here on the weekend for both of these teams and moving forward. I think Bjergsen, again, he summarized it very well in that this is a large learning curve for them. And that, with the 10-ban system, with Wild Turtle back in the roster, how are they going to adapt and eventually become a consistently performing team?
Yeah, and I think the big thing is just finding what works for them. Like Bjergsen said, we lost a voice in Double If. He was someone who helped give us direction, and you need to find someone to replace that, both out of game in terms of what your team does well, and in game in making sure that you actually do that stuff. And I think we've seen in the past when Bjergsen takes a big shot calling role, which we've seen in kind of Season 4, Season 5, that his mechanical and individual play does seem to drop off a little bit, and having someone be able to back him up is going to be really, really important.
And I think on the side of Immortals, it's a similar goal in that they need direction. However, for them, they've got direction in terms of Dardoch is a vocal player who's going to want to push the pace of the game. But he chooses the direction. It's up to everyone else to also follow, right? So for them, it's a little bit more of the, we've all got to be on the same page and follow up on the direction. TSM needs more direction.
And I think sometimes Dardoch, you could say, has blinders on in terms of, like, I can make this play, and it's like, you can maybe, but it's risky. Maybe not.
Absolutely.
And I think, someone to pull him back every now and then would be really good. That said, the top lane synergy seems really strong between the two. They had some great dives onto Haunter. They gave him the Dyrus treatment for a little while there. And I think it's the kind of thing where they have some stuff to build around. It's just about the fact that they have hardly any practice time so far.
TSM able to close out the week with the 1-1. We're headed to a break, but when we come back, we have our final series of the weekend with Team Dignitas battling Cloud9. That's a big one.
It's
2 minutes, 2 grams.
2 grams. That's actually just about as much as I lift at the gym.
2 grams.
Why do you think it takes so long? I do 500 reps.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Flash happened. Very nice. Catches him right in the flash as well. Dardoch's going to go down on this one. That's going to make the chain of corruption lock them both down. Cody's son's going to be left now. Has to break a side of the box. Oh, it's going to be Haunter getting in on this one too.
She's in my W. She's in my W. She's in my W.
Finish her.
Yeah, 2 seconds.
Oh, Bjergsen going over the wall. Cody burning down. Cody in the back, he's fine. Spellimu not, no! Haunter finds him as soon as that wall falls off. Pobelter's gonna go down now. They waited so patiently, they scattered so well, and TSM comes out on top of the series, winning game 3. TSM take down Immortals.